All right, good morning or good afternoon now. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And this morning, again, as I've had several times, this is a new problem with the hardware in that I was lecturing, everything seemed to be going along fine, and all of a sudden, I went at the end, I went to, turn the tape off, and it was already off, and it showed nothing. So I'm redoing the tape right now. Again, today is Monday, the 18th of September. Last week I was driving with my wife, and we were in driving through Wentzville, and we saw a sign, and actually a place, for something called Stello's Bar, Flower and Wine Bar. Okay, so we went by it, and I thought, well, that looked interesting anyway, even though I do not drink. But I went over there, went back and tried to look up their website when I got home, and see if it even comes up. Usually it times out when I try doing it like this. All right, so it says it can't be loaded. So then I thought, well, okay, I'll go over to here. It says that's their website. So I clicked on that and it said, wow, blocked harmful host. And I thought, well, that isn't good either. So I decided to make my own. And then later on, I went out and thought, well, you know what? What if I tried to get there from, for example, from Yelp? So I went out to Yelp, and then they had it right here. And I clicked it from there. It said, see you later. And sometimes it comes up and it shows the site. Sometimes it does this again. So bottom line is I went out and created my own site. Now it looks nothing like theirs, although I did rip off some of their pictures that I saw. Let me show you though. Before we do that, let's talk for a minute about this RWD example that we went over the other day. All right, I'm going to bring it up. It looks a little different because I made some modifications to it. Now, widescreen, so right now, if I look, my width is 1920. Okay, that's fine. If I start taking this and knocking the size down, then you'll notice when I get to a certain point, so right here, I'm at 1203 pixels wide. All right, watch when it turns kind of a purplish. All right, there I'm at 1200 pixels. All right, then let's see what it turns to next. And it's blue. So here I am at 1032 pixels wide. And then once I go over to the blue side, now I'm at 1022 pixels. They're not exact, you can tell, but I'm going to keep going. It'll turn white next. And it did. So now it's still blue. And it says that I'm at 772 pixels wide. If I keep going, now it says I'm at 767 pixels wide. And if I go a little further, so right now I'm at 504 pixels wide, but if I make it a little bit more narrow, so now I'm at 500 pixels wide. Why am I taking the time to show you this again when we've already looked at it? Let's take a look at why, okay? So first, let me bring up every file that's in here. So I'm going to bring up, in fact, let me open it, and I will open it in code. All right. And we have three files in here. We've got styles.css right here. We've got script.js right there, and we've got our index file. Okay, so let's take it from the top and let's start with the index file. This is virtually the same index file I showed you the other day. So why am I showing it to you now? Well, I want to mention a couple things. First of all, this is a few years old. This meta tag that's in here isn't used very often anymore. But literally what it means is if for some reason the user is using Internet Explorer, act as though they're using Edge. So it's kind of a hack. All right. Then when we go down to this line right here, this line's new. Now, what used to happen was that it was recommended that you take your line where you bring your JavaScript, external JavaScript into your program, and you put it way on the bottom, right above the ending body line. So it would have gone and been line 37. 37 would have been pushed down to 38, 38 down to 39, etc. So why am I not doing that anymore? Well, a fairly recent development is they came up with this defer tag that you see in here. And that defer tag basically says defer, or in other words, do not load this JavaScript file until everything in the head in here has been loaded. All right. Now, you'll notice it looks somewhat similar to when we set up a script tag. When we set up an image tag, but we don't say script source equal, we say img source equal, and we don't say defer. So this is a way of bringing external JavaScript into a program. This is one of the things that's different from the example I showed you last time when I took the JavaScript and put it right in here. Now it's in its own file. And it may not sound like a whole heck of a lot, but just like you should always strive to put CSS in its own file, you should also strive to put JavaScript in its own file. Now, if I come back here and I open that file up, not really a whole lot in there. All right. And it's the same function I showed you the other day. The only thing that's different in here as opposed to what I showed you the other day is you may or may not be able to tell, but there's a backtick here and a backtick there. All right. We're writing more or less JavaScript literal type of notation. We'll talk about that in the coming weeks. But basically what this says is whenever I press that button, find the current width of my window, find the current height of my window, and list them both on screen, which is exactly what was happening. All right. Okay. Now I put this comment in there, and as you can see, it says, boy, I don't know why it's doing that, but it is. Let's see, open to the side. There we go. Okay. There. That's what I wanted. All right. But I didn't want this one open. Of course, I wanted this one open. There. All right. So I put the comments in there that say these are common sizes, 320 to 500 pixels for a mobile device, 501 pixels to 768 pixels for an iPad or a tablet, 769 pixels to 1024 pixels for a small screen or laptop, 1025 pixels to 1200 pixels for a desktop or large screen, and 1201 pixels or more for an extra large screen, like maybe a humongous TV or something like that. All right. This is exactly what we had in here the other day, except we added line 27. I'll go over that line in just a couple minutes. All right. So really what we have here is in the CSS, I say to take these H1s, and when the program starts to run, don't show them. But for now, I'm going to say, well, what if I didn't do that? What if I just put it like this? Wouldn't look like much. There you go. Just has all those in here. I don't want that. All right. I don't want it to look like that. So what we said in here was When the program starts running, don't show any of my H1 tags. All right. Now, as far as the rest of what's in here, this asterisk is called the universal selector in CSS. I put my own reset in there, and I'm saying, hey, when the program starts, make sure both the margin and the padding are set to 0. So there's no margin and there's no padding. Okay. Next, I just grabbed a default font family. So in other words, after I typed in font family, : I put in A for Arial and then hit tab. All right. And grabbed one of the ones that was there. So, all right. Well, it didn't grab the right one. So let me try it again. So font family. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to type in AR for Arial. There it is. Area Helvetica and sans serif. And again, what this means right here is attempt to bring this page up and use an Arial font. If for some reason there is no Arial font on this computer, try to bring it up with a Helvetica font. For years, Helvetica was the kind of preferred font for a Mac or Apple machine. I don't know if it still is or not. If there is no Arial available, if there is no Helvetica available, just bring it up with whatever default sans serif font you have. In addition, the text color should be black. The background color, if ever need be, should be this kind of gray. All right, I should align my text to the center, and I put some padding in there just to move it down. All right, then we've got our H1. Again, our H1 should not display when the program starts. That's all we're saying there. It should not display when the program starts. All right, then we've got this button, which I did a little bit of work as far as prettying it or whatever you want to say it up. All right. We put some padding around it. We made the font weight bold, and we made it somewhat rounded. Now, just to show you, I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to just as something different, I'm going to say background, and we'll put in navy, which I think is 000080, I believe. Let's just type in navy. Yep, 000080. There. And we'll put the text color as white. You'll notice that really white is FFF. When you get a repeating pattern for all three, so FF, you only need to put 3 in there. You can put in 6, but 3 will work just fine. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, when we are hovering with this button, all right, when that's the case, I'm just going to change the colors and make them reverse them. All right, so the background will now be here F#FFF, and this one will be 000080. All right, and what did I do? It's much easier to do something like that, just show you. So notice my button now. See, it's blue. And notice when I put my mouse over it, it turns white with blue writing. All right, didn't have to do that. Just as something a little bit different for you there. Okay. All right. Let's continue on. All right, we've got several media queries in here, and you'll notice that the first media query has an upper range but no lower range. So it just says max width 500. Okay, max width 500, and it says turn the body red and display the word mobile. Okay, I'm going to change this one. I'm going to make a little change here, and that is I'm going to change this to 0, 0, 0. All right, making it black, which means I'm going to change this up here to FFF and make that white. All right, we'll see if I made it better or worse in just a second. All right, but what I'm trying to get across is this. That as we come through here, we're saying that if whatever device we're using is between 0 and 500 pixels, we want the background color to turn red, and we want to be able to display that H1. On the other hand, so there's no range here, just an upper limit, but no range. On the other hand, so that was for phone, but for a tablet, notice we have both a lower range, the lowest, 501, and an upper range, 768. So if that's the case, all right, now we said, let's see. We told this to be black, but it's going to have, yeah, that'll work okay. All right. Then we have another one with a minimum and a maximum. Notice that ends at 768, so that starts on 769. And it goes to 1024, and there it's blue. Then we go from 1025 to 1200, and it's kind of this purplish. Finally, and this one's a little bit different because, again, we've got the min width. So before we did a max width, which meant 0 to 500 pixels, now we're doing a min width right here, which means 1201 pixels and above. All right, and the other thing that's new that we did not do last time was this, and that's a landscape, and it's easiest to show you. So again, I changed the coloring scheme around a little bit. Let's see if I made it better or worse. All right, I guess it's kind of hard to read widescreen, but that came out well. That looks okay. That looks okay. That's not bad. And that's not bad. Okay, it's just on here with this color that it looks a little funky. All right. So what if I change that color? Still showing that FFFF in there, so it's doesn't have the color I want. Yeah, it's just getting lighter. I don't want it to be lighter, so let's see. All right, we'll use this gray. So when it starts out, it'll have that gray tinge. I just think that'll read better with the white text. So there it is now in gray. All right, and it goes from there to purple, to blue, to black, to red. Okay, all right. The other thing in here that's new again is this landscape tag. All right, and that landscape tag, which is here, notice unlike all the rest that are min width, this is a min height. So this says when the minimum height is 501, I'm sorry, when the maximum height is 501. So 501 and below, all right, it should say landscape. Well, let's see if it does. So I'm opening it up here, and then I'm going to go into developer tools. And you'll notice 740, all right? But if I come back again and come over to here, and I choose there's nothing. However, if I come over here, oh, where is it? It's not showing right now, unfortunately. There was a thing over here before that allowed you to change it from portrait as it is to landscape. That's not it. There was something here before. It kind of looked like sort of like a sideways football. There it is. So if I go now, notice how it changes because it's 767 because it's above that 501. And if I go, for example, to Galaxy, all right, do the same thing, again, you can see what's happening. And if I go to iPad mini, do the same thing. All right, now notice it's 1024. I don't know why it's not saying it in here. All right, but it's not picking it up. All I was trying to show you is there's a min width, a min height, a max width, and a max height. Okay? All right, so with that said, let's come in here and look at the next one. Now, again, as I mentioned, I had this thing where I wanted to make my own thing for this Stellos. Now, right now, it's going to look real bad because I don't think I have the right name in here. So let me bring it up. And you'll notice when you look in here, I've got 3 HTML files. So I've got an index.html file, which is my home, an about.html file, and a contact.html file. In fact, these 3 files are all identical in the first 22 lines, except for 2 things. All right, number one is the name of the page, so contact, home, about, wherever you are, come on, there it is, and which of these is active. So notice class active for the about, class active for the contact, and class active for the index. Now, if I save this and I run it, doesn't look very nice because our CSS has not yet been applied to it. All right. So you'll notice, for example, if you look at the menu near the top, the 3 bulleted items, and you look at home and about and contact, you can see they're in a vertical list, not in a horizontal list. All right. I've got some pictures there, one of a shower, one of the Facebook logo, and one, but there's not much to them. Here's our footer. And again, the problem is, as of right now, we have not yet added our CSS. So let's do that, but we'll do it incrementally. So this says it's looking for a file called style.css, and you'll notice I have a styles.css, but I don't have a style. That was done on purpose. So now I have it. So you'll notice that now if I save this and I bring up my home file, there we've got stuff. All right, if I go to the next page, got stuff, and I go to the last page, got stuff. All right, so we're done, right? No. I want to show you how we got here and how we got to the other 2 pages. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here in my nav section. I didn't put a header in here. Maybe I should have. But there's in my nav section. So I'm going to go over here to this file that is called style.css. And I'm going to comment everything out, everything out of here after my navigation bar. So about the first 120 lines are going to stay. All right. And what I'm going to do is, this is just a garbage file anyway, so I'm commenting all that out, and 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 finally that out as well. So now it's all commented out except the stuff at the top, the first 120 lines. So let's look at those lines and see what indeed they are doing. All right. So taking it from the top, again, this is making sure that when the program begins here, when the program begins, all right, what we have there is no margin, no padding, and box size border box. Now, I did go over this with you last week, but basically you've got to kind of look at it like this. Let's imagine that I have a paragraph, and that paragraph has around it a bunch of margin, and that margin has around it a border, and that border has around it some padding. When you are figuring out the size of whatever is that content, if it's a paragraph or something else, you have to add all those up. They have to all become part of the equation, unless you put box sizing border box, which means only when you are finding out the size of something or whatever, only worry about the actual content area. Next, we are saying HTML and body. So these are global things. Our global font family will be Arial. Again, if you can't find it, Helvetica. Again, if you can't find it, sans serif. The line height will be 1.7, so there should be a little bit of spacing in there. Next, for our hyperlinks, give them a color of a little bit lighter black than black, and get rid of the list style. I'm sorry, the text decoration, meaning don't underline the hyperlinks. Next, for our H1s, H2s, and H3, padding bottom 1.25 rem. I tried to, almost whenever possible on this, to use rems. Rems are, in a way, they're kind of a magical type of unit. When you think rem, by default, which means unless told otherwise, think 16. All right, what does that mean? If I took 125 and multiplied it by 16, I'd get 20. So 1.25 rem is the same thing as 20 pixels. 0.625 rem is the same thing as 10 pixels. Rems are easy to work with. However, if I came up in here and I said font size, let's just say I said 10 pixels. Let's say I did that. All right. Now, this is going to be 1.25 times 10 and not by 15. And what you should notice, a fairly marked difference when you bring up the site. So you can see it's a lot smaller there. And the text there. And the text here as well. So when you use rems, it defaults to a font size of 16 that everything plays off of, unless at the top of your CSS you reset that 10 to something else. Now, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go back to this, and where it had said 10 pixels, I'm just going to get rid of that line. And you'll notice as soon as I do, and I do a file save, and I go back, everything's now bigger again, like it was to begin with. All right. So we're continuing on. Our H1s, our H2s, and our H3s should all have padding on the bottom, and it should be 1.2 rem, which again is 20 pixels. Our paragraphs should have a 10 pixel margin on the top and bottom, and 0 pixels on the right and left. All right. Then we've got these things that are called utility classes. You don't ever have to make these or use these. But the advantage of creating utility classes is there if you've got a bunch of things on a website that want to share stuff, you can put them in a utility class. All right. Now, I had problems with this. I'm going to try something else in just a bit. But believe it or not, these colors, this color right here is, I literally Googled hex code for red wine and hex code for white wine. Again, I'm not sure if that's correct or not, but that's just what I did. Now I'm going to try something here. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I'm going to try it anyway. Okay. And it doesn't like that. Property value expected. If I leave it like that, it doesn't recognize it. Don't think. All right. Okay, this didn't change. The text that's in here should be this kind of goldish color, and it's not when I get off of it. So it's not recognizing my utility classes, and I don't know why. But the idea, typically the reason that people actually have utility classes is so that you don't have to keep typing in this value all the time. All right, I can just type in something like this. And you might say, well, that's even more typing. That isn't the point. The point is, if I decide later that I'm going to make massive changes in my coloring scheme, it's kind of nice to only have to change it in one place. All right, so I've got a primary, which is red wine, a secondary, which is white wine. Now, buttons will display inline block. Buttons typically display inline, but by putting display inline block, there's some more CSS that you couldn't otherwise set up with them. The font size will be 20 pixels or 1.5 rem. It should say 24 pixels. The color will be the color of that white wine. The background color will be the color of red wine. There'll be 0.75 rem of padding top and bottom, 1.25 of rem padding right and left. There'll be no border on the button. When you put the button out there and you hover over it, it will have a pointer, will be the cursor, okay? And the radius will be 10 pixels, so it'll look a little bit rounded. Then if you look on the button hover, all I did was I took the background color, the color in the background color, and I reversed them. And if you say, what does that mean? I'm going to show you right now. So notice it's a maroon button with gold text until I hover over it. Then it's a gold button with maroon text. Okay. All right. Next, I've got this dot active and I've got clear both. I don't even know if I need that because I do have a dot active there down here. So I'm not sure if I even need this thing. I played around with a bunch of stuff when I first started this. So I'm going to comment that out and I'm going to run the program again. All right. Kind of hard to tell, but I don't think anything has really changed in it. Okay, we'll find out in a moment. All righty. So next is our navigation bar. Oh, I should mention too, I should say this to you. All right. First of all, notice that it's got a few meta tags in here we haven't looked at before. The first meta tag on line 6, the first meta tag there on line 6 is a description meta tag. So when you are going in and you are submitting a site, and the idea is if you're submitting it and you want it to be search engine friendly, you should add meta tags like description and keywords. Not everybody agrees with that. No one really knows exactly what Google and Yahoo and Bing, how they figure out their search engine organization. All right, nobody or optimization. Nobody really knows how it's done, but that's supposed to help. All right, this is new as well. Okay, if I go out to fontawesome.com, which is what I'm going to do in a moment. So if I go out right here to fontawesome.com, okay, it's going to give me this. Font Awesome basically has a bunch of free little images that you can use. So if I go down, I'm going to keep going down, and this is what I did. I put my name in here, or I should say my email. I clicked the I agree to the terms of service and privacy policy, and I clicked the Start for Free button. When I did that, what I was given was an email from Font Awesome that had this URL in it, which said, hey, that's just for you, Jeff, and now you can use Font Awesome. I don't think you have to do that if you don't want to. I just wanted to show it to you. But I think if you go in here, we did this last week, if you go out to cdnjs.com, all right, and that is Content Delivery Network javascript.com. If I go out to there and hit enter, then if I come into here and I type in Font Awesome, there it is right here. So if that's the case, you can just click this middle thing that says copy link tag. All right, so if I click that, now I've copied it. And if I go back to let's just try the first page here on this index page. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put that in. All right. Now it's done it a little bit differently. All right. But let me comment this line out and this line. And I want to see if it still has my Font Awesome icons in it or if they're gone. And you notice the icons are still here. Actually, they're not all here. I got that. We're on Facebook. That looks different. We've got wine is not there. And if I go out to contact, those are all there. All right. So what I'm trying to show you, maybe not well, but what I'm trying to show you is there's two ways you can bring Font Awesome and their icons into the program. You can do this. All right, when you go out to cdnjs.com, or you can literally bring it in like this, which again, the way that I did that, the way that I set that up was I went out to fontawesome.com and put in my email address to register. All right. So then we've got our nav bar. And our nav bar, as you can see, has got an ID in it of container. I'm sorry, it's got an ID of nav bar. Then underneath that, we've got a class, a div with a class of container. And that div holds our logo. It holds our menu. They're all put in there together. So again, if I come in here and run this right here is what they're talking about. This thing starting basically right over here and ending right over here. All right. Notice that the H1, we gave it a class of logo, and in the H1, we're adding a URL, and that URL is an image. That's the picture of the Stellos logo. All right. Then after that, we've got our menu with index, about, and contact. And that brings us down to the showcase, and that's where I wanted to stop, was right here. So I'm going to jump back into this style file here. This clear that you can see in line 70, for lack of better words, it's kind of a hack. All right. And I ended up with some white space on the bottom of my pages usually, or near the bottom. This was just a way to get rid of that. And with this clear, the big thing is if I've got a clear right or a clear left, this will clear them both out. Add color worked along with this. So if you look here on my index.html page right here, when I did this originally, I had some white space down here. All right. And it's not there after I put in that fix. Just put it that way. Okay. So this is the nav bar. Again, we are saying with a nav bar, it should have a background color, kind of a medium black, a text color of white, and an overflow of auto. Next, we've got our nav bar, but these are the anchor links. And I could have made them the gold color, but I made them tan instead. I just did. Then you've got the nav bar H1. And notice we're floating that to the left. So again, over here will be our logo, and we're putting some top padding on it. Then notice our unordered list, we're floating that to the right. All right, and we're saying list style none to take away any of the decorations around there, so there's no circle, no disc, no square, etc. Then for the unordered list items, we're floating those left. This is just a combination of back and forth that you typically do to try to set your navigation bar up so it looks as nice as possible. Finally, starting in line 104, as you can see, all right, the last thing that's in there is that's for our anchor links. And first thing we're doing is we're displaying that as a block. All right. Then we're adding padding, centering the code, and giving it a margin top of 1 rem. All right. Next, we're saying when we hover over this, I think I showed you this already, we want the background color to go to this gray, and then the text color to go to that gold. The logo should have a left margin on it of 20 pixels or 1.25 rem. So by putting all that stuff out there and then bringing this up, Okay. Well, not too much has happened. So why? All right. Because the only thing we've done has been this. That actually is now styled. So let's continue on and see what we have next. All right. So this area is called the showcase. Now, I mentioned this in class today, but I want to say it again. And that is that if I go out here and I'm going to go out here and I'm going to use Google out here, okay? And let's see. You'll notice that I go right from a nav to a section to another section, etc. And you may remember or you may not, I don't know. But when I went back and I'm going to type in here W3 schools, semantic HTML 5 elements. I showed you this picture last week. That one right there with the header, the nav, etc. There's no hard and fast rules about this. And what I mean is some people put the nav right in the header. Some people did what I did and didn't even have a header. Some people put their articles in the sections, etc. So I just did it the way I did it. All right. I'm not saying, by no means am I saying it was the only way to do it. All right. Okay, let's continue on then. Why I keep closing this, but I do. All right. So again, right now, if I come in here and I'm going to change this from style.css to styles.css. And let's see what that does, if anything. Now it brought all of this in. In fact, there's our first page. Okay. Well, this works. And now if I go to any page and I click on the logo, it sends me back to the home page. That's typically the way people set up their logos. They left justify them. And if somebody clicks on it from one page, they always send them back to the home page. Again, it's just kind of an unwritten rule. I don't know if it's a rule, a standard, or exactly what you call it, but that's usually what you see. Okay? All right. So we now have that. And that was in this styles.css file. Okay? I'm going to again go down and everything after this, line 120 here, I'm going to comment it out. All right, so that's all commented out now. So the only thing that's uncommented right now, the only thing that's uncommented is my nav bar section. So again, if I come back to here now, and let me save this, and let me go to my first or index page, and you'll notice that's again, like before, that's the only thing that's actually done. So let's talk about this. Again, this section right here, this is what's known as our showcase section. It goes by different names, but the idea is what we like to have in there. All right, and what we have in there right now is not the same thing. So let's change that. All right. So if we go into here, and again, I'm in the showcase now, and you'll notice I've got an ID called showcase, and inside of there is a div with a class of container, and container does just that. It contains something. It keeps something like in an area. Then I've got another div for showcase content. Then I've got an H1, and in that H1, I added this span. What that should mean is the word flower in flower shop should be text primary. So in other words, it should be the color of red wine. So Stella's flower, and I did the same thing in wine. So the word flower and the word wine, both of those should be in the red wine color. Flower and wine. So you can see that indeed that's working. All right. Then as we keep going here, all right, as we keep going, that was our button again. We talked about that before. So all that stuff, nothing in there is really new. That's all our nav bar. So let's take the showcase now and let's comment that out. So I'm going to start there, and where that ends, now I'm going to start it back up right here. Okay, so what am I doing here? Starting in line 122. Well, the area that's kind of in the middle of my screen is called my showcase. And I'm giving it a background. I'm giving it a background image there called showcase. What did that do? Again, let's take a look. All right, and it's the picture you see with the white and the red grapes on it. All right, I also put some text in there, and that text is red for the word flower and red for the word wine. It's got a little bit of spacing between the lines, and the button changes to reverse colors when I put my mouse over it. All right, I haven't done the bottom part yet. That's still to go, but I just wanted to show you that. So that's what we did second. So there was the background image. By default, background images are greedy. They like to take up all the room they can. And if they're a little image, it just likes to repeat over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. But I told it not to repeat. I told it to center on the page, and I told it to cover the entire center with a height of 30 rem, which again is 480 pixels. Then the content has got a black color. It's center aligned with a bold font. All right, the H1 here has got some padding. All right, and a font size that was upped. Now, do you have to do all this? Of course not. All right, but I put a bunch of stuff in here trying to show you a bunch of concepts, and hopefully I succeeded. All right, there's a little bit more. And that's everything to that point. Now, if you look here, that was the showcase. Then I've got right in a row, I've got these two things. This is the next section. These are my two pictures. Info image 1 and info image 2. They're both a class, and they're both in the ID of bar info. Some people, when they write these things, they do it like this. I don't like to do that. I like to use camel casing, where if you've got multiple words, the first letter in the new word is capitalized. So if I had this is the tax rate, the T in this, the I in is, the A in the T in tax, and the R in rate would all be capitalized. All right. So these are our two images. So what did we do with those? Well, that's in bar info. All right, so let me turn, oh, good, it's turned off again here. So what have we done here? Well, I've given it a height, 45 rem. And again, do your math. 45 rem is something like 720 pixels. All right. I said for the first image, here's the key, float it to the left and have it take up 50% of the screen's room. my image 2 float it to the right and have it take up 50%. So that is everything with those. And again, once I do that and save, and I come back to my index page and look, now my second two pictures are in here. These are two pictures, and they're each taking up 50% of the screen. All right. I could have grabbed any pictures I had. Didn't have to be these. But here they're working on flowers, and here they're drinking wine. Since it's a flower and wine bar, I thought it made sense. Okay. The next thing that's in here are these Font Awesome icons, which right now look pretty dang ugly. So let's pretty those up next. This is our features section. Starts here, ends here. And you'll notice our features have box 1 and box 2 and box 1 again. If I go back to my styles, there's my box 1 and there's my box 2. So I'm going to get rid of this. So the box 1 and box 2 each will say take up a third of the screen. There's 3 of them on my screen. There is a box 1, a box 2, and another box 1. I believe that's the way it is. They're each taking up a third of the screen, so collectively they will take up 99.99% of the screen. They both have some padding on them. They both align the text to the center. You'll notice with the box 1, the background color is white wine and the color is red wine. But with box 2, the background color is red wine and the color is white wine rather. Then regardless, that should say, yeah, if it's a box 1 paragraph or anchor tag, make it this color. And I can do the same thing with a box 2. All right. And if it's a box 1 or a box 2, the H3 should both have some margin on them, top margin. So if I come in here and save this, and I again bring it up, now those look pretty good. They are no means perfect, but they trade off where the background on the first and third one are white wine, and the coloring for the image, the little Font Awesome icon, and for the text is red wine. That's on both ends, and it's flipped in the middle. And you'll notice the thing I still don't have here formatted is my heading, or my footer, not my heading. My footer has not been formatted yet, and that is still commented out. So let's go down. There it is. Footer ID equal main footer. I want to go all the way down to my footer. There it is. So it says for the footer, all the text should align to the center. The color should be, and I've got it that tan. Again, if I wanted to, I could make it. Okay, we could make it the color of our white wine, like that. The background color is that kind of light, little lighter black. 2 rims of padding and a margin top on there. All right, so again, if I come in here and save this and then look at it, all right, and I don't know what I pressed, but if I bring this back up again, so go to index. Now what you'll notice is this is all back. All right. So that's the first page. So what I've shown you in here is how to left justify an image or a logo, how to right justify, all right, how to right justify your navigation bar. You can go in like we did here with the active class. So any one of these I touch now gets the gray background and gold text, because that's what we told it to do in the CSS. From setting up the nav bar, we did our showcase area. After our showcase area, we did our area where we brought in a couple pictures. And then finally, we brought in our Font Awesome icons. And as you can see on the very bottom, also our footer. Now, if I go and shrink this, try that again. If I go shrink this, doesn't look very good. That text is running into here. These two pictures are too close. These are too close. So we'll have to fix that. All right, and we will in just a bit. So that's the first part. Okay, so next, as far as what's in here, is going to be our About page. And right now, it doesn't really look very good. Not really at all. All right, and we're going to fix that right now. We're going to fix that About page. Okay, and do it the same way that we worked before. And that is, I'm going to come back to styles, and I'm going to go, in fact, let's go into here, and we'll go into, I can close this one now. We'll go to the About page. And again, as I told you earlier, the first 20-some lines are identical to what we did earlier, except rather than it saying home, it now says About. And the active class, rather than being on our home page, is now on our About page. All right. So this is the stuff for our About page. All right. We told it to have a background with that white wine color. Then we're splitting the top part of it up into halves. The first half will be floated left, take up 50% of the screen, a minimum height of 100%, and some padding. And notice the info right looks almost the same, but it's floating right with the width and the min height and the padding as opposed to floating left. The H1 on the left, I'm giving it a size of 40 pixels or 2.5 rem. Our paragraphs will be half that, or 20 pixels, or 1.25 rem, and they will be in a color, the red wine color. Then our image, as you can see right here, our image. Notice I'm playing with the size there. I can say width 70%. If I didn't like that, so let's look at that. So let me save. This is the About page. I don't know if it's going to look better now or not. It doesn't. So we're not bringing that file in yet. So let's bring in that file. And where is it? Right there. So this right here should say styles.css instead of style. Now you'll notice when we look at it, a little bit of a difference. Now, I've got a little white space here and a little white space down here, which I don't like at all. All right. And I could come up with, I didn't try to, but I could try to come up with some kind of a hack to fix that. All right. But I didn't have time to do that. So this is our thing that's split into halves, the About Stellos with the text and the picture. And you'll notice again that picture is at 70%. If I do go in there and change that picture from 70%, which is what we just had it, let's make it 95%. All right, not 950, 95. So we have not yet changed it. But let's come in here and try doing it like this. File, save. And you see that it now got bigger. All right. Is that better or is that worse? I mean, you can play with it. So much, in my opinion, of being a web designer, not developer here, but designer, is to have an eye and a flair for things. I'm not claiming that I've got a great eye for things. I've done enough of them that I can get by. How's that? All right. So if I wanted this to be a lot smaller, I could knock it down some too. You'll notice the clouds here. Once I saw those clouds, I went onto the internet and tried to find another thing with some cloud background. This is a background image right here. And I put I think it's an H2 tag. And then you can see we've got some, these are supposed to be some testimonials by our customers. All right. So if I come back into here then, here's our testimonials. And again, as you can see, on line 234, right there where it says background, all right, on line 234 there where it says background, what that is, all right, what that is that's those cloud pictures that are back there. I played around a little bit with padding and margin to try to make it look better. All right. Testimonials is everything in that section. Testimonial is a single one of the testimonials. So you'll notice the image that's in there. All right, I gave it a width and I floated and started playing with the different margin things that were in there. That's all I was doing. And I made it 50% so it was circular. All right. All right, paragraphs, background color of white wine, text color of red wine, and a right margin. Okay, H2s. Again, you can see what we're doing in here. Hopefully that makes some sense to you as far as what we are doing. All right. And then finally, the contact form is our third page. If I bring that up now, it's going to actually look pretty good because, or it should. No, it does not, because we didn't change that one either. So you'll notice that bringing in the right spreadsheet, or I should say the right CSS style sheet there, just by doing that, and then coming back to the page, quite a difference. Now, again, you may not like my usage of colors and stuff, which is fine. You could always go back in here. This was designed to be a teaching tool. So you could take this and make any kind of changes on here you had any desire to make. Okay, that's all it was. So this is the form that you see here. There's an H1 that says contact us. Then there is a paragraph that says please fill out the form below to contact us. Then we have three labels, one with the word name, one with the word email, one with the word message. They all have a 4 equals, which means that if I click on the name, notice how my cursor goes in there. When I click on email, my cursor goes in there. And when I click on message, my cursor goes in there. Now, it looks like that's a very small font size. We could always change that if we wanted to. All right, I'm just going to leave it the way that it is. But this is the form, and this is a submit button. And you'll notice, again, we've reversed it. So it is a red button with yellow text. Unless I hover over it, then it becomes a yellow button with red text. Okay, so again, there's so many things here, if you decide you want to, that you can come in here and do. All right, so if we look finally then at our contact.html page, as I mentioned earlier, these first 20 lines or so are the same, 21 lines. All three of them, except the name that you put in the title and which one you make the active class. All right. So coming down here again, we've got a section that's called contact form. Starts right here, ends down here. Okay, so here is our contact form. There was that H1, contact us. There was that paragraph. Please fill out the form below to contact us. Then we've got the form itself in between lines 31 and 45. Now, normally, on line 31 where it says action equals, you wouldn't have double quote there. You would have some kind of a server side file. So when you hit enter and you submit that form, you want it to go to a server someplace. We're not doing that in this class, so I didn't put anything in there. Oftentimes too, you also see in there either method equal get or method equal post. If you are showing someone something, but not really allowing them to change it, the method is usually get. If you are showing something to someone with the idea that they can change it, the method is usually post. All right. Then when we split that up, you'll notice we got a div section for the name, another div section for the email, and another div section for the message. So let's talk about what's different between them. First, let's talk about the fact they all have a label with a for equal, and I already showed you what that meant. That you could click on the label and it would put you into the input or the text area box. All right. This is just a simple text field. All right. It's of type text. The ID is name. So if I wanted to manipulate that programmatically using CSS, I could do my hashtag name. It also has name equal name. This right here, where it says name equal name or name equal email, etc. When it has all of those, we could have put it here too. I'm looking and it looks like I left it off here, but I could have here also said name equal message. Like that. Would have been fine. All right. That name, if you use it, all right, that name, what that is doing. Oh, I did put it in here. I'm sorry. It's right there. So I've repeated it, and that's why I'm getting the error. All right. That name is used with server-side code. So the ID is used with client-side code, and the class we're in right now is a client-side class. The class you take in your third semester, usually, the AWD1000 database-driven website development 1 class, is a server-side class. All right. Notice that the input type for the first one is text, meaning it's a simple text box. For the second one, it's email. What does that mean? Well, let's do this. All right, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put this up on the screen. And I'm going to come in here and type in hello. And I'm going to come down here now and I'm going to click submit. And I get an error message that says, hey, you need an @ sign in there. So what if I put in hello @ sign? All right. It says, hey, after that, you need to put something else. But if I put in hello at goodbye.com, it won't complain. It's not doing anything with it, but it's not complaining either. All right. So one thing I could do, just to make this a little easier to see, is I could come into my styles.css and in my contact form, I think I can do it here. We'll find out. I'm going to put font size 1 rem and see if that's going to make it easier for me to write in there. Should make that a little bit bigger. Now, one thing I could do that I didn't show you earlier is this. I can come in here and I can add, for example, a couple things. I can put in here the word required, which means now that is required. And I can say placeholder equals, and I can say, for example, John Doe, like that. What did that do? It's easiest to show you. So now it says example John Doe. It did not change my font size, it looks like. All right, so we have to change that. So let's see, where I tried to change the font size, it did not work. So I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to come in here and in my input area, in my text area, now I'm going to try to change it in here. I'm going to say font size. Whoa. I want to say font size 1 rem. Let's see if it makes it better there. I just want you to be able to read it, so when I'm doing something, you can see, get an inkling of what it is I'm at least trying to do there. All right, doesn't still look like it got any bigger. It didn't. Yeah, it might actually be bigger, I don't know. But there, that's a placeholder. Now, if I click this, this is a placeholder. As soon as I start to type, that text goes away. So this isn't actually there. It's just showing me what it should look like. But this is now required. So when I click there, I get, hey, please fill out this field, because it's required. All right. Whoops, sorry. So I can do that and I can put another placeholder in here again for the next field. This is the email. So again, I can come down here and say required and placeholder equal e.g., for example, hello@goodbye.com, for example. All right. And again, I will come in there and save that. All right. And let's see, it doesn't like something. It's giving me the underline here. Special characters must be escaped. It does not have my double quote. There we go. So let me try it again. And now you notice I have in here example hello@goodbye.com. All right. And then finally, for the last field that's in there, this is a text area. All right. A text area is designed to have multiple line input. Of text like we have above in the email, those are designed for single line input. Then we've got our button, which says we want to submit the form. That's everything that's in there. Finally, we've got these boxes again. You'll notice that there's a box 1, a box 2, and a box 1 again. And we are using Font Awesome again. FA is Font Awesome. Font Awesome, phone, square size. And typically, by default, the size is 1x. But you can, I think, do a 1x, a 2x, a 3x, a 4x, or a 5x. I grabbed it pretty much in the middle and used 3. I literally grabbed this line from the Font Awesome site. And that's why it gave me this aria hidden equal true also. All right. And I think all that means is if somebody is using a browser for the blind, you don't even have to show that. You can hide it because it's not going to help them really anyway. All right. But if you look at these, I'm using a tell link, okay, which says if you've got it on like on a cell phone, this should highlight, and if you click it, it should dial this number. All right. And then I've got another one in here for the location where I put in Google Maps. And it should try to find this location for us. Right there. And finally, I've got an envelope, and this is one of the email sites that they showed out on their actual website. So actually, this is fairly, at least, working. All right. Now, if I go back to open up with Live Server, and I click on this, see that? It says you want to open it up in an app. Right now, it's telling me that I don't have the ability in what I'm doing here on this computer to actually make an outgoing phone call. If I click on here for the location, it's bringing up Google Maps, and it's trying to find it for me. And it says that's how I get here from my house, for example. All right. And then finally, if I click on this one, it'll attempt to open probably Outlook. Oh, it says cannot get there. Well, I'm not sure why it did that. All right. But it should open up Outlook and allow me to send an email. All right. So what I tried to show you in here, was how we could go, and you're going to get all this code, but how we could go in there and create an RWD site. Now, the only thing bad about this is when I make this smaller, that doesn't look bad, but look, see how that's smaller, that's a little bigger, and that's bigger still. That doesn't look good. All right, this looks a little cramped in here. When I go to home, again, that text should be smaller. These guys, these should be stacked, so there's two of them. These should be stacked as well. All right. And finally, when I go to the about, well, there's a lot of white space in here. And I don't know, it doesn't look terrible other than that. So it is somewhat responsive. But let's take it now and make it responsive. All right, so how am I going to do that? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is this is done. So I think I can close this now, and I can close this and close this and close this. All right, so I can also close this then. Now I'm going to bring Stello up again, but I'm going to bring up the responsive web design version. All right, the RWD version. And let me open that up. In code. All right. And I'm going to go to my index and show you the magic line that's in here, so to speak. All right. And I don't know, do we have word wrap turned on? No. Let's turn it on. The line is here. It is in line 10. Now, what you'll notice, you may notice it, you may not. I have a media query right in my HTML file. What this says is, hey, if the screen size, if this is being used on screen and the width of the screen is between 1 and 768 pixels, utilize everything that's in mobile.css. Otherwise, don't. What's in mobile.css? More than anything else, what is in mobile CSS, just so you know, more than anything else, what it is I have set it up so that when things are floating, I turn the floating off. All right. And when things have got no width, I've set their width to 100%. So it's not a big file. But again, for the logo, don't float it and center it. For my nav bar, don't float it. For my nav bar links, that had a bunch of padding, like 20 pixels before, I knocked it down to a quarter of that. All right. For the showcase, set the height to 100%. Previously, it had been set to a certain number of rems. All right. Again, for the same kind of thing, I'm adding or deleting some padding. Same thing, I'm adding or deleting some height. I'm removing a float and setting it to 100%. Notice here I've set min height to 50 on this and min height to 50 on that. Why? Because on this home page, if we run it now and we look at it on a smaller screen, notice it's looking a little nicer now. And there's my one picture, and there's my other picture. Now I'd have to fudge with it a little bit because somehow I lost the guy in there, but it's not terrible. In fact, everything now looks pretty good. All right. And notice here, previously that was left justified and these were all over on the right. But now I said to stack them. I could have also gone in there and used the slick nav that we had in our book, but I didn't. So there's the home page. Here's the about page. Not bad. And here's the contact page. And again, not bad. All right. So by using the mobile.css, we are telling it that once our screen size reaches 768 and lower, to use that particular CSS style sheet, but otherwise don't use it at all. So that's it for this. So what I want to do, because I'll forget otherwise, all right, and that is I'm going to come back in here, and this is all the stuff I had. There's also a guide in here, when to use M's versus when to use rems. Bottom line is, if you use rems, it's much simpler. Much, much simpler. All right. So I'm going to come back in here, and this thing is called Stellos. I'm going to right mouse click on here, And I'm going to do my git bash here. You've seen me do this countless times. So right now, if I type in git status, I'll get an error because I don't have any git repository. So git init, which brings in that empty git folder. It's not empty, but it's got system files in it. Git add dot to add everything to it. Git commit -m Cello's website in RWD, non-RWD format and screen size program, something like that. And now that's all the stuff that it's going to add in here. All right. So I can't push it yet. I've got to first go out to GitHub. And under GitHub, I want to create a new repository. I'm the owner. And let's make sure I've got the right capitalization, whatever. It's Stello, all in lowercase. I would think I don't have that used right now. And I don't. I'll make it public. Yours, again, would always be private. And then click Create the Repo. Come up to the top here. Grab that Git Remote line, because we need that. All right, I've got that. Now I can come back into here, paste that line in. Right now, if I type in this, Git Remote -v, there's nothing there. That's the mechanism we use so Git and GitHub can communicate with each other. But now if I paste that in, and if I paste it in here, okay, didn't like it. Let me try it again. Copy, paste, and I hit enter. Now if I put that Git Remote -v, now the communication has taken place. Basically what it's saying is when you push something locally, that's where it's going to go out to the cloud. So now I can say git push -u origin master. It's going to spin for a second. Looks like it all works, so I'm going to clear and exit. And now if I go and refresh my page here, there it is. There's the RWD, the original, and the RWD, the RWD example, the Stello original, the Stello RWD, and that article. Okay, so you've got all that. All right, now when I'm creating this right now, I am not using Teams, I'm using Camtasia. And that means that I can pause. So we were an hour and a half in, so I'm going to pause for about 5 minutes. All right then, so to continue on, I was trying to think of possibly the best way to teach you about CSS Grid. And this is kind of what I came up with right here. All right. What we're going to do right now in class, as a class, and you'll get this along with the rest of the stuff today, is we're going to go over the W3 School CSS Flexbox tutorial for the next 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it takes. Then I would recommend that you on your own go out to WebDev Simplified. All right, Kyle Cook is the guy who runs that site. He's terrific. He's got a Learn Flexbox in 15 minutes where he just creates a real simple example and goes through all the different things that you can do with it. I think it's very well done, especially, like I said, for only being 15 minutes long. Then Free Code Camp has got this Flexbox cheat sheet type of tutorial, and it's animated. So when you're doing something, you can kind of actually see what's happening. It's a little longer. All right. Then after that, because I'm a big proponent, I very much like Brad Traversy. Last year, he did a Flexbox crash course. It's about a 50-minute long video, but it's very well done. Finally, if you do all that and you're still interested, you can go and sign up here for a free class on mastering Flexbox. It's about an hour long. But we're going to do this right now. So I'm going to go out to here. I would recommend you do these on your own. You can do all that on your own probably in about 1 to 2 hours. If you say I don't have time, then don't do it. All right. But again, if I type in here W3 School CSS Flexbox tutorial, it's the same one I just showed you. Now tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit about CSS Grid, which is chapter 10. You won't be responsible for that stuff. But notice they also have a grid tutorial. All right, we'll talk about the differences between them as we go on in here. All right, let me close that and let me close that. All right, now I'm sure as we go through this, I probably won't hit 100% of the stuff that's in here. If you look over here, you're like, well, this isn't bad. There's Flexbox, Flex Container, Flex Items, and Flex Responsive, 4 things. That is true. All right, but they're broken down and they give you a bunch of examples of different things that you can do with this. All right. So when you talk about Flexbox, the author says here, before Flexbox came around, typically the way most people did layouts were to use blocks, inlines, tables, and positioning. But even more than that was what we just finished, and that was the use of floats. So really using Flexbox or using Grid, all right, they're designed so you don't have to use floating anymore. All right, and the difference between Flexbox and Grid is Flexbox is basically one-dimensional and Grid is basically two-dimensional. Now, of course, there's other differences, but putting it in a nutshell, all right, you can go a little bit more nutso, so to speak, with Grid than you can with Flexbox. Basically, the support is for all modern browsers support Flexbox, all modern browsers support Grid. All right. So it says when you start working with the Flexbox model, you need to first define what's referred to as a Flex container. So there's the Flex container, and there's what's in it. 3 divs with a number 1, a number 2, and a number 3. They're right here. That's it. That's about as simple as it gets. All right. Now there's all sorts of other stuff that you can add in here, just so you know. There's other stuff, and you're going to see it as we go on. But like I said, this is about as simple right now as it gets. And they mentioned here, where they say a flexible layout, it's just basically Flexbox. So a Flexbox must have a parent element with a display property set to flex, just like that. All right, once you make that, any children of